So when I was living in New York, and I actually created a piece for my apartment that I was decorating at the time, and it was a triptych piece, so on 3 canvases. I've got this fascination with guns, believe it or not. So there was an AK-47 with an actual real bullet clip resident into the canvas, and I just did it for me. I went down the street in the West Village to have it framed. The lady gave me a price to have it framed, which I agreed upon, and she says, "Oh, I've got another offer though. How about I don't frame it up and I'll purchase the artwork?" And she says, "Do you know who the artist is?" And that was an easy one, of course. It was me, and I was a little taken back that someone would want to sort of buy this piece. So I said, "Oh, okay." And she made me an offer. And the offer was very, very generous. And I said, "No thanks, frame it up, I'll pick it up next week." And I've still got that piece to this day. Yeah, had a show, and my first sort of big sale was I painted these 2 7-foot by 4-foot grizzly bears with holding AK-47s. And they actually sold to a couple in the Lower East Side, I think a week in, so yeah, that was a nice one. Got a nice little check for that one. During the sort of my high school years, it turned into learning sort of like the art of graffiti and tagging most of my school books and spending most of my time that I should have been studying probably. Just I don't know, sort of refining my artistic style, and then it sort of grew from there, I suppose. Led to the sort of going to the street, transferring the style from pen to spray can and learning the different techniques, and yeah, that's how it all sort of began. I was always very intrigued by sort of Banksy and influenced by Shepard Fairey and a lot of Black Larat, a lot of these sort of like pioneers of the stencil world. So 2015 I sort of shifted my focus to creating stencils, and they're all hand cut with a surgical scalpel, majority on paper. And I just really sort of love the process of sort of breaking down the illustrations, or firstly creating and breaking down them into layers, and cutting them out, cutting the negatives out, making it look like nothing, and then all of a sudden putting it all together on a wall or on a canvas and having it come to life. Yeah, a lot of the mural work is wall-based, both exterior and interior murals for like private clients. Where I can, I always source my own quality materials. I stretch my own canvases. I like to sort of have the vision, the dimensions, everything in my head. I know exactly what I'm going to create. I know exactly how big the canvas has to be, and I'll make it accordingly to that. I think Berlin's definitely special when it comes to, if you're talking about well-known graffiti crews. Obviously the most popular graffiti crew in the world, One Up, started right here in Kreuzberg. Yeah. So yeah, the culture, it's totally different to sort of where I grew up. There's probably the graffiti crew sort of like started the movement, and I'd say influenced a lot of like sort of the world. There was 2 places, in the 80s and 90s when graffiti really got big. One was obviously the pioneers in New York City, doing the trains and whatever, and then the Berlin scene, really flourished as well. The street art scene, I think, because of the freedom in Berlin, that really flourishes. Whereas New York is pretty good as well, but a lot of the big street artists used to go to LA to paint because it was not a felony there. They could get away and sort of not get busted. Whereas in New York they sort of cracked down. It's always been a creative hub, this part of the city. The punk scene in Berlin just started a street away on Oranienstrasse, and you've still got SO36, the music club. That's been like a massive part of the punk rock culture and the music culture in general. And I was just lucky enough to find a place that was right in the centre of the creative hub, but sort of hidden enough back from the craziness of the street. I just love the experience. I love the freedom. Obviously, I love the graffiti, seeing the graffiti everywhere, and sort of the artist culture. There's so many artists all sort of inspiring each other, and yeah, it's just a very, very unique place for art. So a lot of the inspiration has come, obviously from people I meet, places I've travelled, just, day-to-day experiences, or, personal, sort of experiences as a kid growing up with these sort of like what I see now as nostalgic sort of toys or, figures. A lot of cartoons, that I watched as a kid. Big lover of like heavy metal, I love Metallica. I love, the old school hip hop and rap scene. I've got a piece, a Wu-Tang piece in the background there. I grew up watching Astro Boy on the TV before school every morning. So I've done a lot of Astro Boy paintings and, So with a lot of my stuff, I'd say if you spoke to an abstract artist, they'd have a very different take on sort of, what the public's perception of their art is. But a lot of my stuff is like clear imagery, but still quite open to interpretation. Just take the chains, for example. A lot of people look at those and, they see, some people see, chains breaking, chains twisting. Other people will see, they're binding together. What I try to implement is I limit sort of like any external influences. Everyone has their own ideas and they're not all going to give you like free rein and your own creative freedom, but for the most part it's like finding a happy medium. So I can still be excited about sort of creating the piece, and obviously at the end of the day the client's paying the money and they're the ones that have to have it on their wall. So it's got to sort of work for both of us. Yeah, I think just stay true to like yourself. Don't paint anything that sort of someone wants you to paint or asks you to paint. If you don't connect with it, of course. I think art makes the world a better place. It gives everyone a voice. Not everyone has sort of like the financial or material means to sort of produce, what they might want to. But I think art gives everyone an even opportunity to create something special to them and for others to appreciate.